The station's medical wing hummed with the quiet efficiency of 1,000 worlds united under one roof. Dr. Marcus Webb stood before the observation window, watching the containment room beyond with steady eyes. Inside, curled against the far wall, sat what remained of someone the galaxy had broken. She was Valthine, a species humanity had only encountered 3 cycles prior. Her skin held the deep violet hue of her people, though now it appeared dull, almost gray in places where trauma had leached the color away. 4 arms wrapped around her torso in a self-embrace that spoke of desperate protection. Her large eyes, once likely bright with the amber luminescence typical of her kind, now stared at nothing. "She hasn't moved in 6 hours," Commander Peters said beside him. "Won't eat. Won't drink. The Valthine embassy says she's too far gone. They want to euthanize her as a mercy." Marcus pressed his palm against the cool glass. "What happened to her?" "Caught in a raid by the Krell Syndicate. 3 months as a—" Peters paused, choosing his words carefully. "As property. Our forces liberated the ship 2 weeks ago. She was the only survivor in her section. The others chose to end it themselves rather than continue." The weight of those words settled in the space between them. "Every species we've consulted says the same thing," Peters continued. "Valthine who experience this level of trauma don't recover. Their psychological structure is too rigid. They fracture completely. The embassy representatives have been kind about it, but their position is clear. They want to handle it their way." Marcus turned from the window. "But they haven't taken her." "No, because technically she was rescued by human forces. That makes her our responsibility until proper custody is established. We've been arguing jurisdiction for 4 days now." Peters met his gaze. "You're the best trauma specialist we have on this station. 17 different species under your care, and you've helped every one of them. But even you can't fix biology, Marcus. If her own people say it's impossible." "Her name is Lyra," Marcus said quietly. "It's in her file. She had a name before all this." Peters sighed. "I know you want to help, but sometimes the kindest thing is to let go." Marcus looked back through the window. Lyra hadn't moved, but her eyes had shifted slightly, just enough to show she was aware of their presence, even if she couldn't bring herself to acknowledge it. "Give me 2 weeks," Marcus said. "Marcus. 2 weeks. If there's no improvement, I'll sign off on whatever needs to happen. But until then, she's my patient." Peters studied him for a long moment and nodded slowly. 2 weeks. But this is on you." The first 3 days, Marcus simply sat. He entered the containment room each morning with a chair, placed it near the door, and remained there in silence. He brought his datapad and did his work, occasionally speaking softly about mundane things. The weather control systems acting up on Deck 7. A funny incident in the commissary. Nothing that required response. Lyra never looked at him directly, but her breathing pattern changed when he spoke. A small thing, but it was something. On the 4th day, he brought food. Not the nutrient paste the automated systems had been providing, but actual ingredients. He set up a small heating unit and began preparing a simple meal, narrating as he worked. "My grandmother taught me to cook," he said, chopping vegetables with practiced movements. "She said that food made with attention carried intention, that the care you put into preparation translated to care for those who ate it. I'm not sure if that's scientifically valid, but I always liked the idea." The scent filled the room, something earthy and warm. He'd researched Valthine dietary requirements extensively, cross-referencing with human analogs. The result was a stew that should be safe for her biology while appealing to senses dulled by synthetic nutrition. That he ate his own portion slowly, then sealed the remainder in a container and placed it within her reach before leaving. The next morning, the container was empty. "Progress," he murmured, allowing himself a small smile. On day 6, he brought music. Not human music, but recordings from a dozen different worlds. He played them softly, watching for any reaction. Most produced nothing, but when a particular Valthine composition began, one of her hands unclenched slightly. He played it 3 more times before leaving. Day 8. She was sitting differently when he arrived. Still against the wall, still withdrawn, but facing the room rather than the corner. Her eyes tracked him as he entered, though she quickly looked away when he noticed Marcus set up his chair as usual. But this time he spoke directly. "I'm not going to tell you that I understand what you've been through. I don't. I can't. But I do understand that you're here right now, in this moment, and that means something. Your people say that Valthine can't come back from this kind of trauma, that your minds work differently than other species, that the fracturing is permanent." He paused. "But I've seen too many people prove that impossible things are just things we haven't figured out yet." Lyra's eyes fixed on him then, truly seeing him for the first time. There was something in that gaze that cut deeper than any words could. Pain, yes, but also a question. "The human mind can break too," Marcus continued. "We fracture in our own ways. For a long time, we thought those breaks were permanent as well. Some still do. But we've learned that healing isn't about putting the pieces back exactly as they were. It's about finding a way to exist with the shape you have now." One of her hands moved, reaching toward the empty food container from the day before, then stopped. "I know you're afraid," Marcus said softly. "That's okay. Fear means you're still here, still feeling. And as long as you're feeling, there's somewhere to start from." On day 10, Lyra spoke. Just one word in her own language, barely audible. Marcus's translator patch caught it. "Why?" He considered his answer carefully. "Because everyone deserves the chance to find out if they can heal. Because I've seen people come back from places darker than anyone thought possible. Because your embassy might be wrong." He met her eyes. "Because you ate the food I made, which means some part of you wants to be here." Her lower arms tightened around herself, but her upper right hand extended slightly toward him. Not reaching, just acknowledging that by day 12, she was eating regularly. Small amounts, and Marcus had to be present, but she was eating. She'd begun responding to simple questions with gestures. Her color had improved marginally, hints of deeper violet returning to her skin. Commander Peters visited on day 13. He stood at the observation window, watching Lyra and Marcus sit together in the containment room. They weren't talking, just existing in the same space, but there was an ease there that hadn't existed before. "The embassy is recalling their euthanasia request," Peters said when Marcus emerged. "They're calling it a miracle, asking how you did it." Marcus stripped off his gloves, tossing them in the disposal. "I didn't do anything special. I just showed up, for 2 weeks straight, sitting with someone who couldn't even look at you, making food, playing music, talking to silence." Peters shook his head. "Most people would have given up after day 1. Most people aren't looking in the right places," Marcus replied. "Everyone kept saying Valthine psychology is too rigid, that they can't adapt after trauma. But they were looking at it backwards. It's not that Valthine can't change. It's that they need a framework that makes change safe, structure that allows flexibility. I just provided the framework. And the rest?" Marcus glanced back at the window. Lyra had moved to the center of the room, examining a small plant he'd brought the day before with careful curiosity. "The rest was all her. I just made sure she knew someone would be there while she did the hard work." On day 15, Lyra walked out of containment under her own power. She still moved hesitantly, still carried visible scars that would take far longer than 2 weeks to fade, if they ever did. But she walked with her head up, and when she passed Marcus in the corridor, she stopped. "Thank you," she said in carefully practiced human standard. "For seeing." Marcus smiled. Thank you for letting me. She continued down the corridor, accompanied by Valthene medical staff, who looked at her as if witnessing resurrection. Perhaps they were. Commander Peters found Marcus in his office that evening, staring at the same case files he'd been reviewing for weeks. The embassy wants to hire you as a consultant, Peters said. They have others, they say. Others who are told the damage was permanent. Marcus looked up from his work. I'm not a miracle worker, Commander. I just refuse to accept that broken means worthless. Maybe that's the miracle right there. Marcus considered this, then nodded slowly. Maybe. Or maybe we just need to remember that healing isn't about returning to what was before. It's about building something new from what remains. And everyone deserves the chance to try. Outside his window, the station turned slowly in the void, home to thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds, each carrying their own fractures, their own scars, their own impossible stories of survival. And somewhere among them, a Valthene woman took her first steps toward discovering what shape her healing would take.